My name's Marcus Hanneth.
Ian Brett.
Henry Havisto.
Matt Baxter.
Ian Sekafina.
Ben Hall.
Tim.
Sam Clark.
Joel Ashforth.
I'm Raoul Brightoak. I'm the work group leader for arboriculture with the City of West Torrens.
And I'm the coordinator of arboriculture at the City of Marion.
Arborist for City of Holdfast Bay Council.
All right, you ready for question one?
I'm going to do it. Let's do it. What does a council arborist do?
What does a council arborist do?
Well, we do a lot of things besides saving the world.
Well, I guess we look after all the existing trees on council land and in our reserves.
My main role is overseeing the works that we do. So I'll get customer requests that will come in regarding a tree.
Do a lot of speaking to residents and liaising with stakeholders and stuff, I suppose, as well.
So from my perspective, I think it's really important to speak for the trees, and that might sound a bit odd or a bit quirky.
What don't they do?
I'd almost think that a large percentage of what we do is actually working with people.
Anything to do with trees.
Preserve and maintain the trees they have within their area.
If you could be any tree, which would you be and why? That's a really hard question to answer because there's so many beautiful trees that I love.
I'll be a big old river red gum, echo of the past, statement tree.
Maybe a plane tree. I do like plane trees.
Well, I'd like to be a forest tree because I don't have the pressure of the urban environment.
I'd like to be a Norfolk Island pine down the coast at Glenelg, just to have a good view.
If I could be any tree, that's a tough one. I'd stick with native as well. I'd probably go just good old Eucalyptus camaldulensis. You can't go wrong with a red gum, iconic Australian tree, and they always look just so gnarly and big and old, and they've got a lot of stories to tell, and that'd be a great way to live.
Depends where you are. Like, I've always had a passion for oaks, but then being in Tassie, Huon pine, amazing tree, right? Lives for thousands of years.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a pretty tricky question.
Oh, yeah. For me, it's definitely an oak.
That's a good one. I've got a sort of passion for the native eucalypt trees, so I guess I'll pick one of those.
Look, I'm going to go an oak. I love life, so oak trees are long-lived. They're quite majestic.
Just winged it. What's the most interesting tree in your council? So we've got a tree that is down in Everard Park that is growing right in the middle of a road. It's from the original settlers.
Well, I think actually the most interesting tree for me is actually a dead tree.
So we've got a Moreton Bay fig over at Willoughby Reserve at Glengarry.
Probably the ombu tree at the back of Partridge House, Phytolacca dioica. Hopefully I've got that correct.
Well, I'd say it'd have to be the river red gum. We have many of them around, and a lot of those are pre-European.
It's a Moreton Bay fig. Now, when we looked into the history of this Moreton Bay fig that had stood in the landscape for about 150 years, we found out that it was very much a wayfinder for people as they would travel south of Adelaide's central business district and head down over O'Halloran Hill, find their way into the old Noarlunga township, and this tree was a real feature within the landscape.
We've got a couple of pretty old red gums, right, along the Torrens that have been there for longer than our maps can show. So we've got a couple within our parklands which are remnant trees, which they're quite nice and quite important.
And it's a canoe tree, and up until a few years ago it was still alive, but it bears the scar of where the local Indigenous people carved out the bark to create a canoe.
Will trees damage my foundations or water pipes?
Well, yeah, if they're leaking, or if they're really old and crappy, yes.
Generally, tree roots will only get into your water pipes if there's an existing defect in the pipe. So quite often it's old infrastructure that needs to be updated.
Trees are opportunistic, aren't they? Their root systems will go wherever there's a water source.
Not on purpose, I'd say.
house foundations and that, they're meant to be built in such a way that they can withstand a whole range of different environmental influences, and that tree roots also should be part of that, that construction.
If your foundations or water pipes aren't robust enough, then it may happen.
Depending on the proximity to properties, trees have the potential to create problems with pipes and foundations.
But I would say most foundations are built strong enough to cope with tree roots.
The street tree is shading my solar panels and costing me money. Can you remove it?
No, because that's the short-term answer.
If they're shading your solar panels, it is a nuisance. However, the benefit of shade from trees is vast.
The tree is probably saving you a lot of money in terms of how often you switch on your air conditioning also, but let's not forget about that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22.
We assess all of our trees against an assessment criteria.
We can't sneak solar panels beneath canopies and then expect to have the tree removed.
One of the many benefits of trees is the shade that they provide, and the shade that they provide are of much more benefit than the sunlight you're getting on your solar panels, and it's a bit of a backwards circle. If you're cutting back a tree for your solar panels, you're removing that shade, you're increasing your energy usage, and it's just not a good thing.
Because solar panels these days have moved forward a long way, and generally they'll operate pretty well in some shade. But let's remember that trees are the best solar panel that you'll ever have near your property.
Righto, doesn't the council have better things to do than worry about trees? No. We love to worry about trees because trees create our environments. Trees create living spaces.
I think trees are certainly probably the biggest asset we've got. In my view, they're the most important asset we've got, although others will certainly differ from that.
No, that's my favourite thing to do, is worry about trees. That's all council should do.
Part of our role, isn't it, is to push the fact that trees are important, and we do need to spend time looking after them and money looking after them.
Probably not, certainly not from my perspective. Trees are what we worry about. They give us the sense of place within our community.
Well, council does a lot of things, and trees are just a small part of it.
Trees, particularly in the natural environment, are becoming more and more under pressure.
No, not really. That's pretty much it.
Why haven't you cut down the dead tree on my street? That's a good one.
A couple of reasons for that as well. There's potentially we're not actually aware of the dead tree on your street.
The chances are we do know about it, we have it scheduled on a program.
We tend to retain them as habitat trees.
Well, this is the beauty of trees. Trees provide a lot of benefits while they're alive, but they also, in their death, they continue to provide benefit.
Sometimes we'll habitat them, which means we'll bring them back, take out the ends, so you're kind of retaining the structure, but you're not, holding the risk potentially of the smaller branches falling off.
The amount of habitat dead trees can provide to birds, possums, microbats.
They're actually living ecosystems.
Anything they see out there that they might see before us, please phone us up and we'll come out and have a look at it and we can deal with it.
How do you choose which trees to plant? Will you plant a different tree by my house?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of stuff that we consider before we plant a tree.
There's a lot of factors that go into the decisions of what species we plant and where we plant them within the street.
Size of the verge, proximity to underground and above ground infrastructure.
So we plant trees to try and create a resilient urban forest.
The environment itself, where it's growing, what assets are already near there. We're not going to go and put a massive tree that's right next to a building, or if there's already overhead power lines, we're going to opt for a bit of a smaller species.
The SA Power Network's preferred species list that councils need to, abide by when it comes to planting.
So it's all goes down to finding the right tree for the right space.
Just the size of the site is definitely something that we can't go and plant big trees in small streets.
Where we have an avenue of trees, we do try to keep a sense of consistency in that avenue.
We're forever trying to figure out right tree, right place that's going to cause the least amount of complaints, the tree that's going to upheave the infrastructure the least. And if your home's facing north, we'd probably aim for a deciduous tree to get that that winter light pouring through.
What made you become an arborist? Well, it started in horticulture. When I started working with trees, I enjoyed working with big machinery, working at heights, etc. And then I worked out that there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to understanding trees.
Driving home from work one day thinking, oh, I think I need a change. Coming down the Huon Highway, a couple of massive poplars with people climbing around in the trees. And I was like, that looks like a great job, you know. Went home that night, thought, oh, I'll just have a look. There was a job, applied for it, got it.
Yeah, right.
The rest is history, right?
Awesome, very cool, very cool.
When I was a child, I used to love to climb trees, as you do, and got into horticulture originally with flowers and plants and stuff like that, but my yearning was always to go back to the trees.
But when I was young, I read Enid Blyton's The Magic Faraway Tree.
Yep.
And that tree was an oak tree.
Yep.
And I always had this image in my head of this big, enormous tree that all sorts of creatures and characters were living in. And I just thought that was the most awesome life you could ever have.
Why do you love cutting down trees? Well, I don't. I'm there to preserve trees. The only time we will cut down a tree, and believe me, it's one of the most disheartening things that you have to do, is generally when there is no other course of action to mitigate a risk to the public or person, and there is no other option but to remove a tree.
That's the case. I'd rather see them pruned and managed.
I don't think any arborist loves cutting down trees. There's a lot of work involved in cutting down a tree.
We're here to advocate for trees. We're here to preserve trees in the landscape. So I don't enjoy cutting down trees at all.
We very rarely cut down trees unless we absolutely have to, and when we do, it's always as a last resort.
We cut down trees because we have to, because they're becoming dangerous or it's a noxious weed.
The complete opposite. We're all about protection and maintaining of trees.
Unfortunately, a lot of the time, it's not the council that are doing these things, right? It's, you know, there's other forces at play. There's schools that get trees removed. There's trees that get removed for Department of Infrastructure and Transport projects and all those kinds of things. And it seems that the council get blamed for all of those, and because we are somehow part of that process. But a lot of the time, we don't have a say.
Yeah.
Isn't an arborist just a guy with a chainsaw? Not quite. Back in the day, there was a bit of a conception that there was just a tree lopper and all they did was just cut trees, but these days there's a lot more involved with it. An arborist will assess health of the trees. They're almost basically a doctor for trees, really. They will look at symptoms, stresses, ways that we can help trees, how we can save trees, and trees that we can bring to the future as well. There's a lot more involved than just using a chainsaw.
Well, there's plenty of those guys out there. Go to Bunnings, get your battery operated chainsaw and a ute, call yourself an arborist.
Yeah, just a guy with a chainsaw. No, we've got more than chainsaws.
A fair chunk of my, career was, pruning and removing trees. But those, as you progress and you gain knowledge and you gain a passion, those things change.
Could be a girl.
Yeah.
An arborist is someone that looks at the tree in a holistic approach.
Arborists, like horticulturalists, we have a variety of skills.
Getting with the times. Back in the day, it was probably trees getting removed by a backhoe with a bloke in footy shorts.
Yeah.
I've come a long way.
Why are you all men? That's a good question.
This isn't quite true. It certainly has been a male-dominated industry, but there's no reason why females can't play a big part in our industry. And I know some great female arborists.
It's an interesting question.
Yes.
I think that's definitely changing.
I have 3 females in my team, and they're just as valuable to our team as anyone.
I hope that is now starting to change a bit. We are seeing ladies in the field.
The more that we're kind of promoting arboriculture and what it's about, we're sparking more interest in people, and we're starting to see some more gender diversity in the field, which is great to see.
Gum tree's dangerous. I heard about someone who was killed by a falling branch.
What we find is that it's quite a rare occurrence. So when it does happen, it's all over the media. You've probably got more chance of being hit by a car than being hit by a tree branch.
One person, unfortunately, is killed by a a tree, but in the same instance, 10 people are killed by cars. And the thing that hits the news is the tree. It's a bit like shark attacks and that as well. The reality is that you've got more chance of dying falling off of a chair or falling out of bed than you have by being killed by a tree.
Predicting the failures of branches can be a very, very difficult science to master.
Any tree comes with a degree of risk, and really part of our jobs is to manage that risk through our programmed maintenance programs, our inspections regimes.
The reason I guess we hear more about gum trees dropping branches is because they're the most dominant species in our landscape. So therefore, there's more chance of a gum tree dropping a branch, I guess.
Which trees do you hate?
Absolutely not. There's no trees I hate. I hate a tree that has been scheduled for removal.
I don't hate any of them.
No, I don't think I do either.
They all have their place, even the ones we consider weeds.
Don't hate any tree.
It's a strong word.
Yeah, I think every tree has its place. I think it's just making sure you put that tree in the right place. That's the big thing.
When working on trees, obviously the itchy pod was always a tree that I hated. That was never a fun tree to work on, but I can appreciate it from a distance.
I don't necessarily hate trees, but certainly there are trees that have characteristics that are not favourable.
The trees that I am concerned about are exotic and feral trees.
To pin it down to just one species, yeah, I couldn't do that.
Do you get sick of people whinging about trees?
No, I've learnt to live with it.
Most people whinge about trees is because they're just not educated about trees.
It is my job to listen to people's concerns.
You can have your days, but in most instances I see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to help educate.
Yeah, I do, but I don't.
The comment you hear more than ever is, I love trees, but not this one.
Yeah. How are you promoting trees? I've been, talking to my neighbours, and we want more trees down our street, and we're really, encouraging, and it makes you feel good about your job because it can get a bit, it can get you down.
No, I don't actually. I always welcome a conversation with someone that's upset about a tree. I like the challenge of trying to persuade them to like the tree and tell them the benefits of the tree and the reasons why this tree is a good thing to have here.
I think it's part of the reason we do this job is because we want to be that first line of defence, and sometimes we feel like that we're the only line of defence between the trees being cut down willy-nilly or staying there for future generations. So you got to fight the good fight, don't you?
That's right.
So.
Yep.
How do I find a good arborist to give me advice about my trees?
There's a lot of people out there who have diplomas and advanced diplomas in arboriculture that can give you some up-to-date and good information about your trees.
Like in any industry, like builders, plumbers, there's dodgy arborists around that'll tell you what you want to hear or tell you something to build up that risk or that danger level, like, oh, this tree's dangerous, you need to spend this, this and this.
It's an interesting one. Again, being local government, we're not actually allowed to show favouritism to any private or external contractors.
Contact 2 or 3 of them.
Yep.
Talk to them about what your issue is, get some pricing from them, because some of them charge huge amounts of money to produce, these monster reports that look really good that don't tell you anything.
Yeah. Making contact with a few people and just ask them a few questions about what their qualifications to what their history are with trees, and you'll soon figure out the people who know what they're talking about and don't know what they're talking about.
Also look for an arborist that's going to talk you through the tree and talk to you about the tree and how it's performing, rather than talk to you about what works that needs to be addressed.
Why won't you get rid of this bloody nuisance tree that I hate?
I guess it's in the I hate. Like everything in this world, we all have our own different beliefs and personal opinions. You might be one person that hates us, but out there in the community you might have hundreds that actually like it.
These trees don't belong to the resident whose house they're at the front of, they belong to the community as a whole, right? And people are driving down these streets and they're appreciating these avenues of trees, they're appreciating the shade, they're parking at friends' places and they're parking under the shade of this tree. And although it causes individual nuisance issues for individual residents, the community as a whole is the one that the trees are benefiting.
It might be one person that thinks it's a nuisance and the rest of the community love it. So, trees on council property are there to serve the whole community, not 1 or 2 people.
It's about looking outside your own bubble and looking at what the community gets out of it. You know, look at what the street gets out of it as well. You know, property values are increased because you're living in a tree-lined street.
Why did the power company butcher the trees on my street?
Unfortunately, they can maintain the trees outside of Australian standard to protect their infrastructure. So there's various reasons why they do that. You know, they might see it as a potential hazard to their infrastructure, or, you know, power outages and stuff like that, bushfires, which, you know, we completely understand.
So you can have reliable power.
Yes, they have the power under the Electricity Act to do so.
Yeah, and unfortunately that act sits well above the Local Government Act. So, you know, when we run around trying to protect trees under the Local Government Act, SA Power or the power company can come in and they can do what they need to do to kind of justify their clearances and all the rest of it, isn't it?
It's a challenging question. It's one that breaks my heart at times as well, particularly when they take the tops out of our trees. It's for the safe supply of electricity within the community. Are there better ways that it should be done? Absolutely. Do we need to continue to challenge our legislation in this space? Absolutely.
We're at the
I
end.
think we're done. I think we're at the end.
How did you find it, guys?
It's good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, yeah.
That was fine, yeah. I don't know whether there's anything worth retaining there, but